All right, now we're going to move on to an introduction on how to get the most from this, from these lessons. So first of all, it's for all levels. It starts out easy and moderate, and at the very end, it will always get more advanced, and I will introduce in the pronunciation new phrases and words that advanced learners might not be familiar with. So this is a class for all levels of learners. All right, and our cooperation is a win-win. In English, we say win-win. That means you win by getting free lessons to improve your pronunciation every week, and I win by you sharing this class, if you feel it's helpful, with your friends. And so this is a win for both of us. And also, I'm going to... Sorry, here's the win-win. And if they don't watch it live, they can watch it on YouTube. I'm placing this on YouTube after the class. It will not go on Instagram. It will go on YouTube. So you will be able to find the link where the circle is on my profile. So I will place the link about an hour after the class. So you can look for that and watch it again. So be sure and tell your friends about my YouTube account, and eventually I'll be creating original material on just for YouTube. How to benefit from this: listen and repeat. You don't improve your pronunciation without repeating after me during the live. The better way to do it is to do that and listen again on YouTube at least one more time and repeat after me. And then the third best way, the optimal way, is to do the above and to record yourself. Listen to your voice with your ear against my voice and your ear. And then you'll be able to hear the differences. And if you can understand the differences, you can then begin the process of improvement, if indeed you want to change that particular sound. All right, so let's practice. Are you ready? Now, T and D at the beginnings and middles of sounds aren't very difficult. So in the beginning, this is rather simple, but once we get to the later, the endings can be troublesome, especially with regular past tense verbs, and we're going to focus on that later. So D and T, if you try it now, I want you to feel how the air is changing in your mouth. D, T, D, T. Now with the T, there's a small explosion of air that's built up. There's pressure before you release the air. D, T. And that small explosion creates the T sound. D, T. You should hear that. And if you don't hear that, you need to record yourself for this. If you don't hear it, you need to practice it against my pronunciation. This is a very important distinction that we want to make. All right. I will speak slowly, I promise. I know I spoke a bit quickly in the beginning. All right, let's continue. All right, so this is, again, basic. This is not difficult in the beginning. Dog, dead, dream. So this is in the beginning of the word, the D. Now let's go to the middle. Oh, we'll do it one more time. Apologies. Dog, dead, dream. Now in the middle of the word, address, advice, sudden. Now, do you hear there's a slight difference in sounds, especially with the first two? Listen to the sound of the Ds. Address, advice, sudden. Now, do you know why there's a slight difference? Because of the accent or emphasis on the word. With address, you have it on the second syllable, dress, and with address, advice. And with advice, I think it's on the first. Advice, advice. No, it's not. Excuse me, it's not. It just seems to me it sounds a bit different, maybe with the V after the D. And then finally, let's look at the endings. Third, food, mind. Third, food, mind. Now, I know from teaching learners over the years, this ending is sometimes forgotten. So I want to practice it again, and I want you to overemphasize the D. The D at the ends are the most difficult. So I want you to overemphasize the D because most of you don't pronounce it strong enough, and it comes out sometimes as a T or vice versa. A D is a T or a T is a D. So here we go. Third, food, mind. Very good. Now we're going to distinguish the sounds. So I'm going to go 3 in a row, and you can hear the transition between the T or a different sound and the D sound in the middle. So I'll do all 3, and then you repeat it. Town, down, town. Town, down, town. They, day, they. We will work on TH sounds soon. Don't worry. This is a difficult one for some of you. They, day, they. Next we have page, paid, page. Page, paid, page. Wrote, rode, wrote. Now, this is one you definitely want to record yourself and listen to see if you hear the differences. So listen to the endings. This is difficult, and we're going to look at this later as well. Wrote, rode, wrote. So just the endings. T, d, t. You should be able to hear that. If you can't practice just the endings, you want to be able to hear that clearly, because this results in a lot of miscommunication or confusion amongst non-native speakers, this ending, and we're going to look at that later. Let's move now to the T sound. Are you ready? So we'll look at the beginnings, the beginnings with a slightly different spelling, the middle part, T's in the middle of the word, and then T's at the end. So here we go. I'll do one at a time. Repeat after me, and I'll do it twice. Talk. Talk. Train. Train. 12. 12. Now, in English, TH can also be a T sound in these particular words. Thomas, Thomas, Thailand, Thailand. Hello to everyone from Thailand out there. Thames, Thames. Now, the Thames is a river that runs through London in England, but it's when I first moved to England, I said the Thames River because I pronounced it as I would normally say it in America. But in Britain, they say the Thames. When I first came there, I said the Thames River and nobody understood me. All right, in the middle, butter, 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 until, until, and then at the end, night, night, west, west, and then worked. This is the tricky one that we're going to look at. The ED endings on past tense regular verbs causes a big problem. Listen again. Worked. Not worked. Not worked. Worked. So let's focus on the ending. Listen. Kt. It's strange, I know. Kt. Now, put it together. Worked. Very good. We're going to look at that in a few moments. But let's now move on to this distinguishing the sound. Our target sound is in the middle. And I will read all the row twice. You repeat after my attempt. Die, tie, die. Die, tie, die. This is a difficult one, the next one. Listen to the difference. Hard, heart, hard. Hard, heart, hard. So let's just focus on the endings. Listen to this. Ready? D, t, d. Try it. Difficult. D, t, d. If you can do that, you have a very good pronunciation of hard, heart, hard. All right. Good. Let's move now to the third row. And now the difficult part is between th and t. And we will look at these distinctions later as well because this is a difficult combination in English. 3, tree, 3. Three, tree, 3. So now let's try something. Let's put it together. 3 trees. 3 trees. Now, if you really want to practice this thoroughly, thoroughly means completely, T-H-O-R-O-U-G-H-L-Y. If you want to practice this thoroughly, completely, record yourself saying 3 tree, 3 tree, and 3 trees. And if you can hear the difference, you've done well. And compare it with my voice. All right. Each, eat, each. Each, eat, each. Very good. Now we're going to go to spelling. Now let me explain this chart. There are 4 categories at the top. Frequently, sometimes, rarely, notes. All right, so They're comparing the D's and the T's. So what this chart shows is that when you see a D or a double D address, two D's, it's always D. That's why D is easy. When you see a D, except for ED, which we'll look at later, but when you see D's in the beginning or the middle of a word, it's always D. But it's not the case for T. T is the troublemaker. So let's look at the T's. Frequently, frequently means most of the, often or most of the time. If you see a T or two T's, yeah, that's the T sound. I mean, that's always the case in these examples, tie and butter. But sometimes if you write ED, it sounds T. We already looked at one example earlier. Barked is an example. We're going to look at that. And then rarely TH sounds like a T. Thames or Thomas. Here, this is Thomas. And then finally, sometimes it's silent. You write the T, but you never pronounce it or articulate it. Listen, listen. All right, so you have some homework. If you want to take a screenshot of the homework or find it on YouTube, you can also look at it on YouTube and take a photo of it. Here is your first homework. This is for pre-intermediate, intermediate. We have basically words, learning a few new words with T's and D's in the right spaces. And there you have that. So take a screenshot or a photo. So that's the first homework. And obviously when you do this, you say the sentences aloud. Now in English, we have two ways to say aloud. We can say aloud, which is one word, A-L-O-U-D, aloud, or say it out loud, which is also one word, O-U-T-L-O-D. So we have two ways to say this, aloud and out loud. Okay, next homework, so you can take a photo, is to circle the silent T. So obviously, again, practice pronouncing these out loud when you are doing the exercises. And I will discuss this homework next week. And then finally, let's see, is that? Yeah, okay, now let's look at this together. This is practical pronunciation. This is pronunciation on the street. So I'm trying to pronounce, very correctly, and there will be some methodologies or methodologists, people who will criticize this way because they say correctly that this is not how most people speak. Most people don't speak like Professor Korten. But what I'm interested is, this is not primarily a listening exercise, it's primarily a speaking exercise. So you're supposed to gain from me how to speak. How to listen is a different exercise, and of course, you should listen to different accents. So here is something that's interesting amongst most speakers of English. They don't pronounce the endings of some T's and D's within a phrase or a sentence. So listen to this. You don't really hear the endings in black. I will say it and then you repeat it. We'll do it twice. Something to eat. I pronounced it there. Wait. Something to eat. Something to eat. We don't pronounce it. So here's what I would say when I was growing up at home. Mom, I'm hungry. I'd like something to eat. You don't hear the T. So here's another one. Turn on the light. We cut the last syllable, or the last sound actually, not syllable. Turn on the light. We don't, it's ghosted. We say ghosted, we ghost it. So we just barely, we pretend to say it. The end of the road. The end of the road. It's missing, isn't it? It's very funny to know this. But some of these letters at the end, don't panic, but sometimes it happens. Writing on the board. Writing on the board. I use the D there. And sometimes I pronounce it actually. I'm used to pronouncing all letters because of my years as a teacher. But some of you may ask, you know, Professor, how do we know when to pronounce the end of the letter, end of the word, and when not to? And I can only say that it comes with practice. You don't want to try to memorize these rules because they will confuse you. It comes with exposure to the language. This is not a difficult thing to overcome, by the way. You'll quickly pick up on these and you'll understand the word from the context. All right. Now we get into a little bit more difficult. We're going to focus on the crux of the matter. If you focus on the crux of the matter, that's the most important part. Crux is C-R-U-X. The crux of the matter is the most important thing in the subject. So here's the crux. The endings of the words. Distinguishing T from D. Are you ready? Let's begin. Build, built. Build, built. Build, built. I'll do these 3 times because they're extra difficult. Wide, white. Wide, white. Wide, white. Now, this exercise in particular will be critical to record yourself and then listen to my video again and compare the difference. And for those who came late, this video will be uploaded to YouTube and not to Instagram. So I will put the link on my Instagram account. You'll see it. But you'll be able to watch it only on YouTube. Wade, wait. Wade, wait. Wade, wait. I weighed myself this morning. My weight is the following. So weighed is a verb. Weight is a noun. Next, heard, hurt. Heard, hurt. I heard you, that hurt. Down, town. Down, town. These are easier. Let's go downtown. Next, dry, try. These are easier. Dry, try. Or try dry. If you want someone to try something that's not moist, moist, M-O-I-S-T, is the opposite of dry. So if you don't want something moist, you can tell your friend, try dry. Try dry bread. Try rye dry bread. It's a tongue twister. We're going to get to a tongue twister at the end, so don't miss it. It's a very funny one. Next, send, sent. Send, sent. Send, sent. All right, very good job. Now we get to some interesting difficulties with the pronunciation of regular verbs, the endings. So we're going to look at D, ED and T. And we're going to look at the difference in pronunciation because most speakers at the intermediate and earlier levels confuse these endings with the pronunciation. So let's do the D ending first. It bobbed up and down. It bobbed up and down. By the way, to bob is to go up and down in the water. So if something is floating, it can bob up and down in the water. All right. He begged her to stay. He begged her to stay. Beg is to ask in a pleading manner, please stay. He begged her to stay. So here we have g-d, g-d, g-d. There's a very common sound, g-d. We don't say gt, gt, g-d. Next, this is difficult for many of you. She breathed loudly. She breathed loudly. Now, I want to give you advice on how to get through breathed because it's really difficult with the TH. You put your tongue obviously between your teeth. I will talk about this later, but I propose or suggest that you push a lot of air through between the TH and the D so they sound. So listen to this. She breathed deeply, loudly. She breathed loudly. That's a difficult one. Practice breathed. Breathed. Maybe the most difficult one on the D side. They loved it. They loved it. Do you hear how the D kind of naturally goes with the T, I-T at the end? They loved it. Dit at the end. We raised her expectations. Raised. We raised her expectations. And then finally, bridged. Bridged. They bridged the gap. They bridged the gap. So to bridge the gap means there's a space between two things. To bridge it means that you close it. You cover it. That's to bridge the gap. All right, now let's look at ED. Let's first the word, then the sentence. Visited. Visited. Hear the ED at the end? I visited the Empire State Building. I visited the Empire State Building. Edited. Edited. I edited the research paper. I'm sorry, she edited the research paper. Finally, no, not finally, next, ended. Ended. We ended the game early. We ended the game early. And finally, breaded. Not breeded, breaded. He breaded the chicken. He breaded the chicken. To bread something is to put breadcrumbs on the outside of it and cook it. It gives it a crispy taste if you bake it. All right, now the T sound. Most of A lot of people will, young learners will, new learners will not understand this until we practice it. So this is an ED that sounds like a T, and I've given you 4 clues at the end, GH, TH, SH, and CH in red. Those are clues as to when you might expect the T sound. So let's begin. First the verb, then the sentence. Popped. Popped. He popped the balloon. He popped the balloon. Now, this is a common one. You have to pronounce this one correctly. Talked. Remember the KT. Talked. They talked a lot. Next, kissed. Kissed. She kissed a frog. She kissed a frog. Now, in English, this is an expression that means she kissed an unattractive boy. To kiss a frog is to kiss someone who's unattractive, because in English, a frog is something unattractive. All right, next, laughed. Laughed. I laughed at the movie. I laughed at the movie. Next, difficult one here. Frothed. Frothed. Now this is difficult. Remember in the last slide we had breathed, THD, but now we have THT. She frothed a cup of milk. She frothed a cup of milk. To froth is to heat up. So the milk, if you have a cafe latte, you have the milk and you put a steamer in it and you froth it. It gets warm or hot. All right. Brushed. Brushed. This is a more natural sound for most of us. We brushed it off. Now, we can brush our hair, but this is a phrasal verb. To brush off means we didn't let it bother us. We didn't worry about it. We brushed it off and moved on. So some friends of yours might say, brush it off. Don't worry about it. Move on. Finally, reached. Reached. I reached around for it. I reached around for it. Very good. We're nearly finished. We have a few advanced sentences where I highlight difficult things, but the earlier one was potentially advanced. But let's do a few D's and T's. Are you ready? Dumpster, I'll tell you the difficult word in each of these. Dumpster is what you throw your trash in. It's generally very big. It's not in your home, it's outside, and we throw trash in a dumpster. Restaurants have dumpsters in the back where they throw the trash. Ready? David took Daria's troublesome TV to the dumpster. David took Daria's troublesome TV to the dumpster. Now, in the next sentence, the difficulty or the advanced phrase is tried and true. You might not all be aware, but this is a set phrase to denote anything that's lasted a long time, and often it collocates with friendship. Tried and true friendship, actually it should be a tried and true friendship, is formed through years of dedication. A tried and true friendship is formed through years of dedication. And finally, very good, finally, the last one is traversed. If you traverse something, you go across it. And normally it collocates with the environment. I traversed the country, or I traversed different sort of hill. I traversed sort of a field, or I went across. So it's a physical going across. The daring duo traversed 2 mountain peaks before descending. So they went across. The daring duo traversed 2 mountain peaks before descending. All right, we're nearly finished, and then your questions. The tongue twister, I think I'll say it once, and then you can practice it. You'll have a recording. You can listen to it then on YouTube. A difficult daughter. I'm going to read it here from my screen. It's a bit bigger. Dr. Dixon said to his daughter,